All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome back to the Note Strategy Hour. I feel like I need a theme song here once we get a little bit more official, like an intro video.
Yeah.
Um, we'll get there. We'll get there. Today I'm joined with Rawson. He's our construction coordinator, is your official title, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
King of draws is what we call
Yeah. On the low.
him. On the low. Rawson, so the point with the why I wanted to have you on and talk to you is so I get a lot of questions with our investors and then note buyers, and I'm sure you deal with our borrowers with our kind of our draw process, what it
Yeah.
means for them, and what what kind of protections we have in place. So we're gonna have a great conversation for everybody joining live, and then if you are watching the replay, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Ross, and even if you're watching the replay, go ahead and submit it to the link that'll be shown, and we'll answer your questions here. So, Rawson, thank you for joining the Note Strategy Hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited.
What is that? What is the thing called? Like where you can hit the sound bar? I need one of those like real stream sound words.
Yeah. We do
Uh,
those.
uh, sound effects.
Mm.
Um, so, Rawson, can you start just to kick it off? Will you walk us through like the actual structure from the moment a construction loan is approved, and then what are the steps that you take in the draw process? What happens from beginning when the borrower gets funded, and what you do in your role, and how you protect our investors and make sure the project stays on target?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say something that we focus on pretty heavily is educating our borrowers, making sure that they understand what our process looks like. So, really, where I come into play, where I start the story for borrowers is right when their loan closes. So, we make use of different things like automations with our CRM that we use Monday. And so when a loan will close, if they have a construction reserve, we want to make sure the borrowers are educated on our particular process because every lender is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we share information with them, and that goes out to them automatically. We don't want that to be, any type of manual error. That starts out, we can rely on that, and then that comes out through our emails, and that starts the conversation. We share with them our fact page, which has different Loom videos that they're able to watch, and they can kind of learn what our process is like. And then we also reach out to them at that time, asking them if they want to get a short, 15-minute call scheduled. Sometimes it runs a little bit longer than that. Sometimes it's a bit shorter. It just depends on what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like I said, we start the communication heavy in the front end of it. Make sure that there's a system in place to where when they have questions, they know who to ask. We kind of put a face to a name for them and for us, right? Because before we enter that step after closing, it's really the underwriting team that's communicating with them. So we want them to know who's going to be taking care of their loan, who's going to be servicing them, and we want them to introduce themselves to us. So
Have a relationship there with the guy who's going to be giving him the construction money, huh?
that's right.
So when we fund draws, can you kind of touch on our loan logic? Are these reimbursement draws, or are these structured how a traditional lender would do construction draws? So they're prepaid, or they reimbursed? What what is that process with central lending?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good question. The way that we do it is, a number of our loans, they get funds at closing, right? That's really all of them, but I would say probably three-quarters of them, they're getting funds in reimbursements from us, like you said,
Hmm.
where the way that we position ourselves and the way that we have a relationship with lenders, with investors, is we hold back a portion of their loan and then we fund according to a draw schedule, which honestly functions as like a glorified punch list, um,
Okay.
where the borrowers let us know, hey, we're going to do this, 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 and that, and it's going to be in different phases, right? And we try not to be too stingy with the funds. We're not trying to keep any funds from them, but what we're trying to do is protect those assets. And we do that by essentially walking them through and as they get to different milestones in their construction project, such as foundation in the beginning, framing in the beginning, or even phase two, which would be like plumbing fixtures, electrical fixtures, things like that, right? As they get to these different milestones, we are releasing additional funds from their loan to them. And so what that does is it ensures that they're budgeting correctly. It keeps them honest about how they're spending things, spending their funds on things. Everybody wants to build an awesome house and put it on the market, right? Whether it's to sell it or rent it. We don't want them to get too excited and then put all that money in that first phase. And so, like I said, we fund according to the different milestones that they've given us with their draw schedule.
Oh, so essentially we're not, instead of releasing all the money at work, you release it in those small portions.
Yeah.
And when the borrower comes in and they want to draw, what is that process when they apply for a draw? Do they just call you and ask, and then you say
Well,
yes or
sometimes,
no?
yeah, I mean, sometimes they do. Especially in the jump where they're still figuring out what our process looks like. Um,
Hmm.
and we do have real people to call, and so it can be as informal as, "Hey, I'm ready for a draw," um, but we don't send out funds just because people are ready for them. We do verify that work is completed with our third-party partners. We have two of them that we partner with, and they're third-party inspection companies. And the reason why we have two of them is because, and at one point we had one. A lot of companies only have one, but we partner with two different ones, and we do that because we want really the best of both worlds when it comes to verifying that work has been complete. We want third-party inspectors that can go to the project and verify that work is complete. And then we also want a software that borrowers can use if they want to verify themselves and they want to take pictures and videos of the work that's complete. And so we partner with two different third-party companies that we've really had a wonderful relationship with, one for the past couple of years and one coming up on about a year now. We've done nearly 1,000 inspections through them, so we've loved it. And they have licensed GCs that review their work. So that's how we review the work to ensure that we're sending out the accurate funds. But yeah, the borrowers can let me know through a call, through an email, just whatever's really easiest for them. We also have a form that they can fill out. We want it to be very accessible for them so that when they're ready for a draw, there's really not any wasted time in between them deciding, okay, I want to draw, and when the steps are starting to be completed.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense with having that relationship to be informal and then having the software options with our third party partners.
Yeah.
When somebody, so when they apply for a draw, you send out the third party inspector, and you get the report back. Is there ever situations where like you're saying, no, we're not going to release these, or I'm not comfortable with the draw, like releasing funds on this right now? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it can happen pretty regularly, and it's not like a one and done. We don't like the media that's provided, and we're just not going to do it. Right? We're not unreasonable, but we have a relationship with the investors to protect. Right? So we want to ensure that the media that the borrowers are providing, whether it's them that they provided it through pictures and videos, or even if it's the third party inspector that went out to the property. Sometimes we're not 100% sure, really what they completed or to what percentage they completed it. And, we don't want to short their draw. We don't want to give them less than they deserve, but we also don't want to overfund.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line there. And the way that we walk it is, when we are unsure of the percentages of completion, we reach out, right? That's the whole point of really staying close with them with emails and calls. And so we reach out, and sometimes we'll ask for invoices. We say, hey, it's hard to see, what you did here. Would you please provide an invoice for us? Could you provide additional media for us? And yeah, I mean, like I said, that back and forth can be pretty regular, right? When we establish a relationship with borrowers and there's some trust to go back and forth, and we've really shown them like, hey, we're not trying to short you. They really do respond to that well, especially because, like I said, there's a name, there's a face talking to them. So, we try to prioritize their needs and get the funds to them quickly while also protecting the asset, itself.
Yeah, I'm sure you're their best friend when everything's going well, and the worst enemy when it's going bad.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So with you get those, and you have a report that is you kind of just touched on it, but just a little bit for further detail. When you get
Yeah.
a report that you're not like, hey, I something's not sitting right, just hypothetically,
Hmm.
in a casual sense. You get the report back, it's I don't know about that. They send you the bids and of the work done, you're still not comfortable. Are you releasing then just part of what you're comfortable with, or are you sticking to the draw schedule? How does that process work?
Well, I mean, I'll do my best to answer the question, and if I'm missing any information here, then just let me know. And I can think of a super recent example. It's 3 p.m. here Eastern time, and I know about 4 hours ago, most recently it happened where a borrower submitted a draw request and went into our third-party partner, that's a software partner, and while it's in the inspecting phase, where the licensed GC at our third-party partner company. While they were reviewing it, I went ahead and I looked at it as well. I could see the media that they provided. Um, and I could tell in the landscaping item, because they're getting to the end here, this is their final draw. I could tell in the landscaping item that according to the description that they wrote for the item, it seemed like they were either not doing some of the work that they originally intended to do, or perhaps there was some media that was missing. So I went ahead and I reached out to her and I said, hey, we're going to need some additional media here, whether it's photos or maybe an invoice or something like that. At the very least, give me an explanation of what I'm looking at here, what I'm missing.
Hmm.
And so her and I had a conversation. And because of our really kind of white glove walking through the draw process with them, we're able to do that in a timely manner where it's not going to impact her draw time, right? I did that while the licensed GC is still reviewing the work. Um, and so, like I said, if I miss any of the question here, I want to make sure that I stay close to it. But
No, you nailed it, man.
okay, okay, yeah,
That's what I was asking. So that helps with the borrowers, and I think if there's borrowers watching that definitely shine light on that. So
yeah.
for our people who fund our loans and our investors, how does like having a person like you who's going through these draws kind of in a general sense, from your opinion, who's sitting in the position, protect the investor's investment in the asset itself? We don't
Yeah,
sell all these loans; we balance sheet these loans for our funds as well. So how
sure.
does that protect us and then the investor who's buying the loan?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my first thought really is an example. I mean, we have an investor that I'm on a first name basis with. Of course, our whole servicing team is, and he's one guy, and he has over 1 million with us. And in his projects, even though he does this full time, he might see on average 4 or 5 draws for each of those, 6 to 10 properties. And
Hmm.
so, what you're looking at there is maybe 30 total draws for the entire time for those projects. I have seen over 2,000 inspections, right? So yeah, right, and so really that's the benefit. Even a big name investor that we partner with and we're very close to, who has a lot of experience, still it that experience dwarfs in comparison to our in-house construction team, where this is all that we do, right? And so that's really what we want to provide. And it's not to minimize the experience of our investors. It's to supplement their experience, right?
To
It's
assist, to help them out.
exactly. And so that's really what we want to do. That's why I would say there's benefit in working with us. And then also just because we're on that first name basis, we can have conversations about the inspection report should we need to.
Yeah, you get on a first name basis with Rawson as a lender. Um, you can have candid conversations with the
Yeah,
borrower's work,
yeah, exactly.
and speak your true feelings. You don't have to stay all corporate.
That's true.
um, So, kind of from what you're seeing as our, running this, and like you said, 2000 2000 inspection reports is crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
One thing I hear from investors who purchase these loans is central lending when we close these loans and they have a construction reserve. People who are new to the purchasing notes, they're asking, hey, you didn't fund all of this loan at closing.
yeah,
Why do I have to fund it? And how do I know that this isn't going to be mismanaged? You kind of spoke to that,
yeah.
but can you just talk to, you sign off on the draw, and you answer, if we do say no to draws if you're not comfortable, if the team's not comfortable. So how do you kind of balance moving the project along for the borrower so they can get done, and we can, if they're a great borrower, we can hopefully get another deal from them,
Mhm.
but also protecting our investor capital. Where does that line draw for you?
Yeah, well, let me reiterate back to you what I'm hearing. How do we essentially serve the borrower's needs while they're continuing through their project, making sure that they stay liquid while also protecting the investor's assets? Is that really what you're asking?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. You
Yeah.
did it. You said it way better with way less words.
Well, that's all
Way
right.
less fancy words.
Well, I mean, once again, this is all that I do, right? So it's good that I could be able to articulate it. But I guess some of it, what maybe you're looking for to be explained is that we don't want to overexpose ourselves, or us as a lender, or the investor. Um, we don't want to overexpose ourselves, and so we want to make sure that the collateral value only goes up um, in a way that matches the changes done to the asset, right? And so that's the whole point. Like I mentioned earlier, if we were to just give all of the funds at closing,
Mhm.
and then hey, we'll see you at the end. We'll see you at the end of the project when you're going to sell it, or you want to you want to keep it for 30 years and you want to make a rental out of it. If we were to do that, then who knows how the project would go. For us to prevent that from happening, and to guard really the investor's position, that's why we kind of keep some of the bargaining, right? We keep some of the bargaining tool that we have is, hey, we still have some of the funds that you need to finish the project, right?
Yeah.
And once again, we're not trying to prevent borrowers from being liquid, or from easily doing their project. In fact, we want to make it easy for them. Um, but at the same time, if we want to stay in business, we gotta protect the money.
Exactly. So what kind of communication do investors get from your department, whether it's from you or another team member about draws? Is it something we're handling, just pure, hey, the borrower's good, he's current, his loan is standard, we're going to approve this draw? How involved is the investor in that process?
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good question for our servicing team members that head up the majority of that communication. But really, it's as much as the investor wants, right? We've got some investors that are a little bit more laissez-faire, as far as they've communicated with us, they've uh, essentially evaluated our relationship, and we built some trust with them, done a number of deals with them. And so we do get those periodic check-ins. We have other investors that are very, very hands-on. And they even want to be the final eyes on those inspections, and they want to make sure, hey, this draw is good to go. So it really just depends. We don't say no to investors as far as how much buy-in they have, as much as really responsibility that they want in the loans, right? The loans that they're attached to, um, whether it's information that they want, kind of, hey, it's a Tuesday afternoon and they're curious how their loans are doing and they want an update, or it's because they want to be hand in hand throughout the whole project. Like I said, we don't say no, and we allow them to kind of create that process for themselves. We don't tell them what they can or can't know as far as that goes.
Yeah, and we have two types of investors. We have the guy who doesn't want to be involved, he just wants his check, and then we have the guy who does it for a full-time job.
And you
We
know what? We
both
love them both.
Yeah, I was just about to say we love you both equally. I know there's two of you watching this right now. We love you both equally, and we want you to know that we are taking care of it. But our policy as well, just for the lenders watching, is if the loan is current and the borrower is doing what he's supposed to do, the draw will be approved. You're
Yep.
welcome to look at it. You're welcome to go over it and be involved as you want. You are the lender on the deal, but we maintain the servicing relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with the borrower, it's kind of that removed relationship. We have investors who want to be super involved and they this is their career, and then we have investors who just want the mailbox money. So we maintain the servicing relationship, and the communication as far as how involved the investor wants to be is up
Hmm.
to you. But keep in mind that we service these relationships with the purpose of us as a lender, central lending, maintaining that relationship with the borrower.
Yeah.
So do not, unless you have previous authorization, our lenders, if you want to fund our notes, we do prefer you not to reach out to our borrowers. Let our team do it. Let them take care of you. We're
Yeah.
professionals at it. We will get that done. Um, so with kind of going back onto the investor side of things, because that's the side I work on.
Yeah.
um, uh, how many, just curiosity question, how many typical draws are in a project? Is it super different, or is there like hey, four is our standard, five is, and I know it varies on the amount of project, but I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
genuinely curious.
Well, I mean, that's a good question, and it's funny because I've got it before. It just depends on the borrower. It doesn't even depend so much on the project. It depends on the borrower. And I say that because it's all about their strategy. Some borrowers run kind of tight. They run a tight ship, and they rely on draws to stay liquid, right? In those cases, I've seen as many as 15 draws, right? Um, I think we just funded a 15th or 16th one a couple of days ago, is this week. And so it's not so much the size of the project, right? I've seen some budgets that are 50, 60K for the construction reserve, and they've done the better part of 10 draws. And I've seen some that are over 100K, and they only do a few. So like I said, it really depends on the borrower. If they're not pulling out draws, then we do reach out to the borrower and we say, hey, we haven't laid eyes on the project for a little bit. We'd like to know, where you guys are sitting, and if you guys need a draw, right? So we're trying to be proactive as far as that goes, but anywhere between 1 and the better part of 20, it just depends. It just depends on the borrower.
Depends on how professional the borrower is and
Yeah.
what the, how geez, 1 to 20. It's a solid range. How
Yeah.
many draw? Average 1 to 20.
Well, if I had to really narrow it down and say this is what we see the most of, 4 to 7. 4 to 7 is like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think the better borrowers get, right, over time, the more deals they do. I think they start to get into a rhythm where, like I mentioned earlier, there's phases to it, right? When they start to have phases that they see in their projects, and maybe even if they have multiple projects, and they have 2 or 3 different loans, right, with us, and they're operating each one of them in the same phases. So phase 1 at both properties, we might get identical inspection reports, really, because they're doing all of the flooring and all of the rough electrical at both properties at the same time. And so it makes it simple for them. Like I said, over time, as borrowers get more experienced, we start to see a little bit less draws, it would seem. But yeah, 1 to 20, right? 4 to 7 to be specific.
Or 7. So when like you said earlier, 22,000 inspection reports, when
Yeah.
you're going through those, like what's something that just stops you in your tracks and like throws up alarm bells or red flags? And then what do you do when that happens?
Yeah. I guess if I were to say like alarms, right, stops me in my tracks. Um, Borrowers requesting funds for something that they didn't do, right? And when I say didn't do, I mean to say when we don't have proof of it, right? Maybe they did it and we just haven't seen it, right? Because we don't go out to the property, and we rely on these third-party inspections to verify the work. But to verify the work, we need the media, which is why, like I said, sometimes we'll reach out to the borrower and ask for additional proof. And so the alarms do go up regularly, right? But they're like a dog that will bark at everything and is never wrong, right? Never wrong, but it's always going to keep you safe. And so we do have those bells and whistles that are going to make sure that everything that does go through, we're really happy with. And so if I were to say something that maybe raises the alarm, like I said, maybe not having sufficient media, or even something as light as the borrower said they were going to do flooring of a certain material, right, or cabinetry of a certain material, and the material changes and they do it in a different way. Now, that sounds kind of crazy, to be honest. Like, why would you create such an issue over that? The reason why I bring that up as an example is, what if a borrower budgeted 15K for an item and the material that they ended up using dropped that item down, 8,000? And so we want to make sure that the ARV that was originally communicated is not going to be negatively impacted. We would love it to be positively impacted, but that's another thing that we might, catch and reach out for additional information for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess that's kind of a hard question. What are red flags? I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
as you said, like alarm going off. But when you lost my train of thought there. Gosh, what was I saying? Alarm bells, something? Draw
Alarms
request.
for,
We're talking about draws,
yeah,
right?
what's going to cause some concern with the inspection?
Yeah. So with a lot of people that I'm talking to about the draws, we have a lot of repeat borrowers.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
So if we have borrowers who close multiple loans at once. If
Sure.
a borrower, worst case scenario for all my lenders listening, worst case scenario, the borrower defaults. We at Central Lending hate defaults. um, but if they default on one loan and they're two construction projects, they're not making their payment on one, they're beyond 30 days late, and they're current on another one, does that borrower get a draw on the current one, or does that default stop all draws on their loans?
Honestly, this is uh, a super good question. And the short answer, the skinny of it is no, they don't get funding. Um, we don't want to play favorites. We don't want to, we have borrowers that have 10 plus loans, um, and 10 plus projects, and some are coming in, some are coming out. It's a revolving door, right? And we love those relationships where we've established some trust with them.
Hmm.
But no, I mean, we have to be firm with that, and we have to have the hard conversation sometimes where we say, hey, listen, you have 6 interest payments, and you're good on 4 of them, but 2 of them you're late on. Please get those ones up to date, and we can give you the funds that you're waiting on, right? And so, to be honest, from the lender side, that does give us some leverage, and it ensures that all those projects go smoothly. Um, Even if you had one project, us saying, hey, you got to be current to get the construction draws, even that would be sufficient leverage, um, to make sure the borrowers are getting that taken care of. But no, short answer, cross default is a term that we use here, and when borrowers hear it, they don't love it, but it's effective, and it makes sure that the loans are in good standing.
What's that conversation like? I'm current on this one. Can I get a draw on this one?
It's exactly like that, actually. It goes just like that, and then we have to, remember that these are real people, and money's a sensitive matter, and we let them know, hey, listen, this is stuff that we were pretty clear about in your loan documents, and we can do everything in our power to help you stay liquid and keep these projects running, but it's kind of a non-negotiable thing that we get those interest payments in.
That's a good point. With that kind of default situation, has there ever been a situation where that that stopping that draw that went into default ever kind of saved investors or even us as a company where we were able to stop something like that in its tracks, whether it's default or like how we just mentioned those red flags?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's difficult to say what exactly we prevented by doing that. I mean, we would hate to fund the construction of a project, um, it be sold or not be sold, right? Us to be out a lot of capital. Um, that hurts so many relationships. Obviously, we're not going to want to stay with that borrower. Obviously, the investor would get burned. We don't want to do that. Um, and so, to be honest, we really focus on preventing that kind of stuff from happening. Those are huge conversations for us, and they happen pretty regularly. How to make sure that we stay out of situations like that. Um, I want to stay close to the question without kind of getting too distracted and talking about different things. This is this space.
We
Um,
got time. Just talk.
yeah, I mean, I
Sure.
would say it doesn't happen so regularly that that I would say that there's something huge that was avoided. I mean, we want to make sure that our borrowers are successful too, because, like you mentioned, we do have a lot of repeat borrowers. Um,
Mhm.
I think, to be honest, there's so much power, there's so much influence in being able to say, we got 60K we're sitting on for this construction draw, and we want to give it to you, but you owe us $2,000. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the weight there, it gets a lot of interest payments paid.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like I said, it makes it to where borrowers figure it out, and they make their interest payments. And to be honest, our servicing team is really proud of our current percentage. Right, every month we're hitting 90% plus current, and we've been there for about a year straight. So we're very very proud of that. Our team works, um, you know, night and
Super
day,
hard.
literally night and day. And so, if we weren't able to communicate something like, "Hey, your construction draws cannot be dispersed unless you're current," if we weren't able to communicate that, then who knows? I don't think that we would get that 90%. And so, like I said, it's difficult to answer exactly what we're avoiding. I mean, we're avoiding, um, you know. The loss,
Disaster.
the disaster, the loss of money, right? Ours and investors. So, like I said, our servicing team is very successful, and it's largely due to the fact that we do cross default, right? We don't allow people to get construction funds when they're late.
Which I feel like should be standard against a lot of operators, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
not.
and we do have a grace period where, the first 10 days of the month, we don't rack up the default interest, right? But even
Mhm.
during that time, the grace period does not mean that you can still get construction draws, right? So there's levels to it, right? Like, oh, you're a couple of days late on interest payments, that's all right. We're not gonna hike up the interest payments. We're gonna wait. It's a grace period. However, that being said, you're not getting construction draws, right? This is your time to get this fixed up. And so, like I said, we do try to be human about it. Um, at the same time, the money's got to come back in for us to send
Yeah.
it out.
And for the borrowers, grace period means we're forgiving.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that your payment is on the 15th, because the grace period is just the 15th. It's due on the
Yeah.
1st.
Well, and that's exactly right. So you wouldn't want to schedule your interest payment to be pulled out on the 10th of the month, because that means a third of the month you're not eligible for construction draws.
Jeez.
So
Things you don't think about with that.
things that you think about after you try things out, right? So
Yeah.
there's sort of like a dating period with the draw process with the borrowers, where they might try to do different things, or might try to plan their project one way, and we have to let them know, hey, this is the policy, this is how we do it, this is what you signed. But we have a lot of happy borrowers, so we're doing something right.
As they all jump in the comments. Well, what about my
Yeah, yeah.
draw? Just
Hi, $7,000.
um, so you mentioned kind of third parties, and then yes, our servicing team is fantastic, and so is
Yeah,
your
yeah.
department, Rawson, and we all work well with our borrowers. So in that relationship with our third parties, do you have any examples of things they have caught before it became an issue?
Oh yeah.
Or okay, he's got one ready.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, and like I said, it's from the small to the big, right? Like, we've got some little stuff that's like, they might catch something, and it might be as little as we just need further documentation. And that happens so regularly that, a specific example doesn't come to mind, but the big ones are the ones that, you think about at night. The stuff that we avoided, and it's like, man, that really would have been a disaster, like you said earlier. One comes to mind. We had a project that, they submitted a construction draw at the end of 2024, and nothing rivals that one. That one is like the one that is like the hushed voices.
Dun,
Our,
dun,
our one of our third party company partners reached out to us and said, hey, this draw got flagged for fraudulent activity, potential fraudulent activity. And these are the reasons why. We hopped on a call. We try to keep our relationships, even with our third party partners, we try to keep on a first name basis. And woman called our department and said, hey, I want to hop on a call. And so we talked about it, looked at the media that was provided, and it was a $30,000 plus draw that we halted immediately. Reached out to the borrower and said, hey, this doesn't smell good. Something, maybe you didn't know. We're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. What's the story here? We let them, kind of tell the story first, because obviously we didn't want to, give them the opportunity to be dishonest, or rather, we were giving them the opportunity to be honest, and that relationship has gone legal, and so that doesn't happen that often. Like I said, that was the end of 2024, and there's only so much you can do to prevent the bad apples, right? If you want to have good apples, you have to have an apple tree, and if you have an apple tree, then you have to be aware you're going to have some bad apples. Like I said, I can't think of anything that rivals that one, but like I said, we caught it, and that was the second fraud. What was the fraud? They had other projects that were local. And what they did was they took photos and videos of other projects that they were working on, and they still fall right. And so we're thinking, oh yeah, this looks pretty good. That's just what they wanted to do. But like I said, we're pretty selective with our partnerships, and the third party company that we partnered with offers features like geo-tracking. So we look at it and it's so simple to know, oh, you took this photo a mile away from the project. It's clearly not where the project even is. And so with some deep dive on that, right, with some digging, we were able to further examine the photos, and we're like, okay, actually that looks similar, but it's not the project. And so like I said earlier, I mean, who knows where it would have gone if we had funded that. They would have had the liquidity to maybe do the work that they said that they did originally, but we don't want to play that game, right? We want to reimburse work that's been done, right? Once they hit those milestones, we want to send them funds for that. And so, like I said, stuff like that happens, we're going to go legal. We're not going to play, right? And we do that so that we can stay in business, and so that we can have good relationships with good borrowers, and we can get more investors, right, to jump in on board. So, like I said, that's the worst one.
We are a for-profit company.
That's right. And if we want to profit, then we gotta catch the bad apples. So
yeah, take care of our investors who are funding our loans. But that's a great example. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God for geo-tracking. And if you don't know what geo-tracking is, it's basically, correct me, we get a report that it'll pinpoint the exact location on a map where the photo was taken.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, no, we get things like what type of phone did they take it on? What direction? What direction were they facing? What time did they take the photo? And we're honest with borrowers, like, hey, like if you submit something that's fraudulent, we're gonna know. And so we tell them, we're upfront. We say, hey, listen, we partner with third party companies because their features allow us to ensure that the work is complete, with things like geo-tracking, and we name drop these different features, and so they're aware of it.
Was that borrower made aware of it before those pictures? I'm gonna assume not. What
I would,
advice?
I would tell you, he would, I don't know what he would say, but I mean, and the thing is, that borrower and any borrower that would do something like that, if they're dishonest once, then dishonest twice. So, um,
Honest.
we want to water the good relationships for sure, and we want to cut the bad relationships off, to be honest. But we want to do it respectfully, and we want to be communicative with borrowers. So we've had extensive conversations with that borrower, and like I said, it had to go legal. So
Busted. There you
yeah,
go. We know where you take the pictures. Borrowers, we know where you take them.
yeah,
Don't take pictures of other houses.
yeah. Well, that's why with that software partner, they have to take media through the app, right? They can't just submit it through their camera roll. And so, we don't budge on that. We know the strengths of our third party, partners, and we lean into those strengths. So that's why we have policies that work and that protect us.
Awesome. Looks like we did get a live question here. Joshua.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can put this on the screen. I lost it. Hang on. Pausing. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this thing.
That's all right.
Do we ever perform site inspections outside of the normal requests? As a general rule of thumb, that's a no, right?
Well, I want to make sure I understand so I can answer it accurately. Outside the normal request, what does that mean?
I'm going to assume he's talking about our inspection reports that we were talking about earlier. Like
Yeah. I mean, borrowers request inspections, and we get out there, right? We send out a local inspector. That being said, it is not only the borrower requesting that would signal the need for an inspection. When we get to the end of the project, if we haven't had eyes on it at all, right? And we have different checkpoints, right? So we have what we call slow draw borrowers. And what that is we have different formulas for, really when a borrower should be at what point of the project. If you get to halfway through the project and we haven't seen that you've done half of the work, we need eyes on it. We need eyes on it, and the borrower, we're going to communicate with them. Hey, we need that inspection, and whatever work that we find is done, you get access to those funds. So it's not like this is a punishment, right? Like we want to keep you liquid. We want to make sure that you're successful with your project. But at the same time, we can't be, shooting in the dark here. We do need eyes on the project to know where we are. And like I said, there's different checkpoints. But in the last 6 months of the loan, especially if it's a bridge loan, right? So 12 months. But even in the 6-month loans, we have checkpoints where it's like, okay, time for an inspection. If we don't have one that says that you're at this point of the project, we need to get eyes on it again.
Joshua, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I think that was a very good idea of our process here. So thank you for your question. If you want to see one of those reports, Joshua, you can shoot me an email. My link will be at the bottom, and I'll show you one. Okay, we got another question from Joshua. Joshua, thank you for interacting. How often do change orders happen, and how do we handle them?
Yeah. That's a great question. I handled one this morning. They happen no more, usually than one a project. If a borrower really runs into issues, we might see 2. That's really rare. A lot of projects, I don't see one. And the reasons why we would have one are the borrower decides not to do a particular item on their budget. Or, like I said, if there's maybe a material change, right? So they're gonna literally install a different type of material. If that's gonna impact the ARV at all, especially negatively, we want to know about it. We do offer reallocation funds. That's really what they are. The construction change forms are an opportunity for the borrower to reallocate funds or to change the description of items. They are not to change the construction reserve total, right? So if you have 150K that you have access to, that number is not going up and that number doesn't go down, right? That's the whole number that you're able to pull from. But when a borrower reaches out and they say, hey, I'm thinking about reallocating funds. What's the process with that? And like I said earlier, we do educate borrowers so that they know what's available to them. That's in our fact page, which we point them to. We talk about that at our welcome call that we have scheduled with every borrower that has a construction reserve. We reach out, like I said earlier, to kind of put that on blast and let them know about it. But when a borrower reaches out, we try to send them the construction form, within 24, 48 hours. Typically talking to them over the phone or back and forth over email about how to get it done. And then once it comes back in, our servicing team looks at it, right? We get it approved, especially if the borrower wants to change something and it's a big number change, right? Now, something might go up a couple $1,000s, not a big deal. But if you're going to do $6,000 of plumbing rough and now it's 20, we want to know, okay, what did you find? What's like, what wasn't there in the valuation that needs so much work? Or maybe if you were going to do light rehab to one particular item and now you want to do heavy, what changed, right? So we do ask questions. It's not just show us where the budget's changing. It's also a couple questions on the front end of it. How is this going to impact the ARV? What's the timeline? Is that going to change? Things like that. And so, like I said, Joshua, that's really kind of what I would pitch back to you as far as a construction change form. I hope that answers everything that you have. If it's not, please just let us know.
Yeah, ask another one. It's a live chat, everybody.
Yeah.
But that's a great question, and I think that's a common thing with investors as well.
Yeah.
A big thing is there's a lot of variables in construction, as everybody knows if you've ever been involved in a construction project in any shape or form. They get a bid from contractor B that's $20,000, for example. Let's say, for a rehab. I mean, and then that contractor falls through, and then they get another bid, and it's $5,000 higher because this contractor fell through. Can you speak on how that would affect an investor who funded a loan like that when that change order happens? Or folks, is obviously hypothetical. We're not talking about a specific example, but if that were to happen, what would the process be from your department with our investors?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that hypothetical was very specific in that I feel like I've seen things like that. And that's a great reason for why a borrower might want to change funds. It's really not like, they want to do this, right? They don't want to do anything invasive for their budget. And they have to pay for it, right? So, we try to de-incentivize just changing the budget nonstop, right? That wouldn't be good. And so we do put a small fee on there as well. But yeah, I mean, if a borrower were to change subcontractors or God forbid, even a general contractor, right?
Which might change. They fell through. They didn't show up.
Right. So if that were to happen, and you're right, maybe they have a different bid for it, or they just decide to go with somebody different, right? My immediate thought goes to the ARV every time, right? We don't want the ARV to be negatively impacted, and so if an item has to go up, something else has got to go down, right? Because once again, we don't allow you to change the construction reserve. That's changing the loan, right? So unless you do a refinance, which we do offer in-house, by the way, everybody, unless you do a refinance, the total construction reserve has to stay the same. Okay. And so if a number goes up, if you want to spend more money on something, that's great. We trust your experience. But at the same time, that money has to come from somewhere. So sometimes things are reduced incrementally. Other times you say, you know what, I've been around the project site for 3 months now. I actually like the back porch. I think we're going to leave it, and so it just depends on what they want to do.
In other words, the borrower can change it, but if it goes up, they can pay for it.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was all the negative stuff, guys. But so what is in your dream world? Well, not dream world. We can go specific. Like, what is a perfect, loan? Obviously, the loan's current. Everybody knows that. But for draws, is it they submit them on time or on schedule? What's perfect in Rawson's world for managing draws on a loan?
Oh man, you're asking the good questions. I like talking about these loans. Well, to be honest, we know what works well, and the reason why I start with that is because we're not hiding things from borrowers. we know what successful draws look like. We know what successful loans look like. This is all we do, right? So um, even in the draw department, we can tell them, hey, if you want a draw to not be impacted by the weekend, right? Because we don't work Saturday, Sunday. Now sometimes we might hop into the emails, but we're not doing anything crazy over the weekend, and so we give borrowers information like, hey, listen, put your draw request in around this time during the week. You should be able to get a little bit faster. Um, your interest payments, this is how you should do it. This is how you should check it. You have questions, this is who you should reach out to, right? So answering your question as far as like, what's a perfect loan look like? Um, Borrowers that care, ask, and listen to what the servicing team tells them as far as how to be successful with their loan, right? Like I said, we're not hiding any information from them. We've gone as far as to keep a record of what kind of questions we get asked frequently, and then provide information to everybody that might be asked those questions. Right? We want account executives to know. We want our underwriting team to know. Obviously, our servicing team has to be up to date on things. So, a perfect loan looks like borrowers that understand the process. Borrowers that aren't late. Those are great ones. Or when they are late, they're quick about it, or they're not upset that we have to follow policy or that we have policies. And so those are our favorite borrowers.
Or they pay one day outside of the grace period for your late fee. I'm just kidding. Um, so, what's like from just speaking to your role in with the draws and the construction management?
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception that you would say borrowers have about draws, and then what's the biggest misconception investors have? Just off your experience, I could speak to investors as well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I was just
Well,
curious, borrowers and investors. Sorry, this thing is like I've just been touching it all day. I don't, like I can't.
it's like a
I've
widget.
just been, yeah, I've been fidgeting with it. So in the recording, when our marketing team makes clips out of this, they're gonna be like, you're like Ricky Bobby, dude. You're gonna have to pull your hands down
Yeah.
and then let
You put all the
everybody,
clips together of you moving it back and forth.
yeah, sit still. Everyone, I'm sitting here like. So Rawson. But yeah, the misconceptions that you think you see a lot from borrowers,
Yeah.
and then if you have feedback on the misconceptions investors usually have before
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
to you.
Well, I mean, I'll hit the borrower one first. Like you mentioned earlier, not every lender works the same way. If every lender worked the same way, there wouldn't be a need for more than one, right? Um, the idea that we just give money out because you're ready for it, that's ridiculous. If that were how we funded, then we would just increase funds at closing, right? Um, but that's the whole point of the milestones, right? That's the whole point of the draw schedule and funding according to what has been completed. And so that's a misconception that if I were able to snap my fingers and make sure that every potential borrower out there knew as early as possible, then I would do that. And so that's a huge misconception. Doesn't happen all that regularly, but even when it happens one time, I'm thinking, I wish that you knew this, but it doesn't. It doesn't really throw projects off. That's what I would think as far as borrowers go. To be honest, you know investors better than I do, so I would let you answer that question as far as the misconceptions might be.
Ugh. Misconceptions about draws specifically, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like it was
Sure.
just
Yeah.
a question I wanted on the borrower is for our lenders, of course, as we mentioned earlier, you could be involved in the process, but this we maintain the servicing relationship, which is a big transition for a lot of people in the note world. They think they're going to have to call the borrower and communicate and approve things. It's
Mhm.
we if the borrower is on track, they're current, and they request a draw, and it goes through our team, and everything's good, the draw's going to be improved. We
Yeah.
can look at it. You can take a look at it. That's more than okay, but we're not going to slow our process. Where the lender does get heavily involved is if there's issues and things come up like that. Of
Yeah.
course, you are the first lien holder on the loan. You do control those decisions, but as far as the servicing relationship, how that plays in is if they are doing everything according to the note, they're current, they're paying, the draw is not out of anything out of the ordinary. It'll be approved. We'll send it to you. You can look at it, but it'll be approved.
Yeah.
That's a big misconception our investors have. Especially, I deal with a lot of guys who originate loans. So they originate loans and then they come to us for the ease of, everything's funded, the deal's already closed, and we maintain the relationships with, borrower communication kind of takes a lot off their plate.
Yeah.
Is they're thinking that this is still, active income, right? They have to work for it. They got to go approve draws. They got to communicate with the borrower, which is not the case. We will handle that for you. And then we'll loop you in communications, of course. But that's our entire role here. Like you mentioned earlier, you said white glove. That's a great word to describe how we handle the investor relationship.
Yeah.
Before we get to the submitted questions, because we're running low, this isn't a hard stop at an hour, everybody. I would like to have a podcast studio one day, and then we could just fly in. But I wanted to ask, what's your favorite part about your role at Central Lending? See, again with my hand, I gotta stop. I wanted to ask, what's your favorite part of your job, and what's your least favorite? I don't know if Andrew's watching, so not corporate level, just like about what you do, your activity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a pretty positive person, so to be honest, I can answer the favorite part really quickly. I live near our headquarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived in this city for 6-7 years, and I've lived local to this city for the better part of 20. And some of our team members are born and raised here. And the reason why I say that is because, even though our loans are throughout the United States, we do have a large concentration on the eastern seaboard, and especially in Florida, right? There's a lot of real estate in Florida, a lot of homes that need to be fixed up and sold and turned into rental properties even. And so there's a lot of really good business here. But I would say my particular favorite part is seeing properties that I drive by sometimes turned into really beautiful homes. Now, like I said, I don't drive by every single one of them because, we do have business everywhere. But that's a favorite for me when I get to see projects go from a place that I wouldn't want to live, turn into somewhere that that's a dream, that's really nice. And I've talked to some borrowers, even as recently as a few days ago, that just take so much pride in their work that they would literally rather not have so much money that's made from the deal, right? Like they're not just in it for the money. They also really like this work.
They have a brand to hold up.
It's such a pleasure to talk with them. And so talking with borrowers that love their work is really important to me. I really like it. And then just seeing the changes to the asset is a lot of fun, to be honest. That's my favorite. Least favorite is probably telling borrowers that they're not eligible for a draw, whether it's because they didn't do work, a particular item, or maybe because they're late on an interest payment and they really want their money. It sucks to have to tell people that because, like I said, money can be stressful. And so I know how difficult that might be for them. But at the same time, we run a for-profit business. And so least favorite part, but that's how it goes.
I just gotta ask, are you sitting in a chair or are you on a stand?
I'm sitting. I'm swiveling on this thing.
I thought you were standing this whole time. I was like,
I do stand. I do stand, but not today. Not right now. They were foolish enough to give me a swivel chair, and I'm spinning this thing.
I didn't notice you were spinning. I just kept looking, and I was like, "Geez, is he standing this whole time?"
He's rotating perfectly. What's up with that?
First one when I did, I made the mistake of standing, and then like halfway through, you could see, and I'm just like, "Oh gosh!"
Starting to sweat. I hear you.
Okay, so we have a couple online questions here, and then we'll get to the people who pre-submitted them.
Good.
Okay, where'd you go? Where did you go? Just a second. I keep closing the screen. I have to pull it back up. From Carlos, is weather taken into account for draws?
Yes. Yes and no, right? I mean, if if it's snowing and the borrower is not able to get photos of the changes that they made to the asset, unfortunately, I do need to see um, the work that's been completed to give you funds for the work that's been completed. Now, that's not something that we as the lender, we as the servicer can really do much about. So we do trust that borrowers are responsible and that they plan their schedule accordingly, right? We do see a little bit of a lull in requests for exterior work when it comes to our properties in the Northeast. Um, I'm not typically getting landscaping requests because they installed bushes in Michigan in December or January, right? And so it does impact draws, but not so much in that I really see it. It's more like the borrowers have to be responsible and choosing when to submit draws for different items. So I see it, but maybe not so much.
Yeah. All right, Carlos, I don't know if you live in a really bad weather part. I'm glad Rawson was able to answer that. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe Carlos is asking about what about natural disasters, which unfortunately,
Yeah.
because we live in Florida and Eastern Seaboard, right? So that's happened, and we've had to reach out to borrowers and say, hey, we need to get eyes on this thing because a hurricane just went through your area. Um,
Hmm.
and so we'll schedule disaster inspections, which are a little bit different. Heavy emphasis on we really need to get eyes on this project and see the different pieces of the asset. And so, yeah, I guess it does weigh into it a little bit more when it comes to like natural disasters as far as weather goes.
Thank you, Rawson, because I was like, what? What is he
That's
asking
right.
for? um, and there was one more here. That Nathan, that your question there, does whether supply chain delay ever impact investor returns? No, Nathan, I can kind of speak to this here. The regardless of of nature and weather, the borrower's interest payment is still due. Of course, if it was a total disaster and things were going on, we are human. We will communicate with them, but standard for normal activity is the borrower's payment is due on the first.
Yep.
Unfortunately, with supply chain issues, that is unfortunate, but that does not affect your return on if you were to fund a loan. But I don't know if you want to say anything about Rawson with them.
No, I think you hit it beautifully. That's the truth of it. We're human, but interest payments are due on the first. So I mean, that's perfect.
Yep. And then we just have one more and then we'll get to your pre-submitted question, guys. I promise here. I'm just trying to pull this up here. Um, as I get really I get high pitched when I'm like looking for something.
That's all right.
Nathaniel, do borrowers ever try and front load draw requests?
That's a good question. I would say I don't see it. Not really. I mean, I live in the inspection reports. I live in the budgets. Um, I would say that it opens up liquidity when they do their permits first, their architectural plans, those soft costs. If they do any type of like um, big items, big ticket items, right? A lot of times they do those in the beginning. And if they have a larger price tag on the roofing or on the foundation, I guess maybe they could, but all those items we ensure that what they're budgeting is appropriate. To be honest, I really don't think that they front load. I see borrowers play things close to the chest, and they're only asking for like the bare minimum to do different items. I see some other borrowers that they really want to kind of give themselves some breathing room, but they pay additional interest for it, right? I see way more of that than any front loading. That's a very good question. And who did you say ask it? He clearly knows what he's talking about. But no, I
Yeah,
don't. I really don't see borrowers do that.
Nathaniel L.
Nice.
Yeah, great question. Which kind of gives it, there's a couple more questions here about that kind of ties into that topic, not necessarily front loading, but a pre-submitted question we had was from James. How often do the borrowers request draws and what's the average time between them?
Yeah.
Can,
Well, I mean, just to add a little bit to what we said earlier, depends on the borrower, but how often? Sometimes they're ready for a draw as soon as the loan closes, and they say, "Hey, listen, I've already done some work. We're a well-oiled machine, and I got 10K that I can go ahead and request because we did 10K of work." And so they might request draws as soon as the loan closes. They're not waiting. The average time between them, it can literally be as tight as we just hit approved on the previous draw, and they want to begin requesting the next draw. Because we got some borrowers. I mean, I've literally seen a house built in a few weeks. Those are more rare. Those are way more rare. But when they happen, the whole team's like, "Oh yeah, I want to check those photos out." But it can be quick as far as the average time goes. I've seen some people do 2, 3 draws in a month, and I've seen some people do 1 draw in a couple months. So it just depends on the borrower.
Good answer. That's kind of been the whole thing. If you are watching, I believe that was James. James, if you're watching, I know you are. That was like kind of touched on it. So, but I just wanted to make sure you knew you got your question answered. Um, and then we had another pre-submitted one from Lindsay. What happens if a borrower disagrees with an inspection report?
hmm Yeah, I mean, we do have a process for disputes. Really, I would say our entire draw process, the way that it gets approved, allows any type of disagreement to be squashed out really organically, right? When we first get the inspection report, we are reviewing the document, right? And that's from the third party inspection company. They review it. Then our team gets it. We review it. We send out a lien waiver and the inspection report so the borrower has access to it. And then when it comes back after they sign it, we still do a final approval to make sure that, okay, everything is right here. We're going off the right numbers. All the different items are finished. And so the time in which a borrower might disagree and communicate is really between us getting the report from the third party company and sending it to them. It's between them then and the final approval where we finally send it out to be wired. So that can take, anywhere between one afternoon to, a couple of days. But that's, if they disagree with it, and we try to think about, okay, what did they request and how far is the approved amount from the requested amount. So, I mean, we kind of know what to anticipate when it comes time to do the draw. But that's really what it would look like. We do have a process for approval.
There you go. There's another one from Emily that asked. It was a pre-submitted question that says, "Are there ever delays in draws that affect project completion?" Yes, I think we touched on that through this kind of whole deal here. But yes, the simple answer to that is yes. If there's anything you want to add on that, Rawson, that we haven't talked about as far as other delays, but I think the most simple answer to that is yes. I mean, from our end as well as the borrowers.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to push something through just to meet a borrower deadline. If the evidence of work is insufficient, I'll add that to it. But, we're real people. And so when they communicate with us that, they have to pay their GC, they have to pay their subcontractors. We want them to stay in business too. We know that we have a symbiotic relationship with them and we need them like they need us. And so when they communicate that they have deadlines, that really matters to us. I remember yesterday even we had a borrower that we had an insurance issue with, and she needed funds, and so we pulled through. The team stopped what we were doing, and we got the wire out to her. And I came in this morning to a nice message from her saying that she appreciated the extra effort there. So I mean, yeah, you're right. It does sometimes impact the project timelines, but we're not going to give out funds if there's not sufficient evidence.
There you go. Okay, we have a couple more questions here, and then we'll wrap this thing up for everybody. Sorry, we just had quite a few questions come in, so I just
Nice.
make sure you guys get answered here, and then we can talk about our new promotion. Um, Emilio asks, dealing with a current situation, how does your team handle a borrower if a contractor quits mid-project?
I mean, I've seen this before. Um, Obviously, we're going to make some considerations there, but interest payments are still due on the first. Construction reserve doesn't change. We do anticipate potentially needing to reallocate funds in the budget right? So that's when the construction change form really gets its time to shine, right? If we have to move some funds around, they're doing all the same work, but they have to get different payouts for it, right? So we've seen it happen. We hope that borrowers make good relationships with their team so that they get the project done on time without needing extensions or things like that. But we offer those in house. So we've seen it. And really, that's like I said, it can't change certain things. It can't change the date that interest payments are due or things like that. But we're pretty agreeable. I mean, we'll work with them, but we set up workout calls where our servicing team hops on with the borrower, sometimes with the GC. I've had calls directly with the GC, FaceTime calls even, trying to show them how to do certain things, use our tools. Um, so especially if we meet a new GC halfway through the project and they need a little bit more of a catch up of what our process looks like, hopping on a call is pretty regular.
Just a quick call. But and then one more. I hope that answers your question. I think Rawson just nailed it, but I wanted to just make sure. I'm not very good at the question part here, where it's hard with no feedback.
Yeah, it's tough.
That where you're like, I hope that's well. I
It's
don't know
me
how
and you and a hypothetical person.
yeah, I don't know how the streamers do it, where they're just like, all right, send in another chat if that didn't answer it. And then I think this is the last question. Is this? It says from Nate.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this is the same guy with the front load question. What's the largest project you manage? How big do you lend? It's kind of a two-part question. As far as lending, I could speak to the lending.
Yeah. Largest project that I've seen, and we've had a construction reserve over $1 million. Yeah, and those are scary. In that, like, they're very sobering, right? Like, we don't want to mess anything up there. The inspection reports on those things are nuts. They're usually pretty long, and they're a little bit more expensive if we do them through one of our partners, but the borrower has to pay for the cost of it, and they're aware of that. But yeah, I've seen some that get really, really big. And then as far as the other side of it, you want to head that off?
As far as the lending goes, I mean, we see the projects like you're saying, like with $1 million construction reserve.
Yeah.
We do portfolio loans. We do these types of deals, but we don't stray away from our average loan size is I think like $185,000. So we fund them, but they're not common. So if Nate, if you have a deal, let me just pop this up here. If you have a deal for some reason and you're a borrower, not an investor, you can submit that here. It's the QR code up there.
Nice.
Leave it up there for a second. And then if for some reason you want to connect with me, you can scan that one if you're looking to fund deals. But thank you guys for joining. I think this has been super great, super fun. Yeah. We do have a new promotion for our investors still listening. It's called Note Timber. Note Timber. Get it? Get the play on words there. Where we're actually going to cover you guys' setup fee with our service or our third party. As Rawson mentioned, we do use a third party service. We use a lot of third parties that we have great partnerships with. We have our loans serviced both internally with our internal servicing team, and we onboard them with FCI. So for the month of November, we will cover your setup fee on any note funded. Woo.
Nice.
And then do it. Note Timber is a good idea. I like the name of it. I think it's funny. So the initial thing was they were like, you should do a challenge. Like if you fund X amount, you'll do this. And so you got like a really good beard, and I can't grow facial hair. I was like, you should have to grow out your facial hair. And I'm like, I don't know if anybody would want to hop on a video call with me if I didn't shave and I didn't look like a child. But we are covering so November, instead of like making me do something humiliating, we're just going to cover you guys' setup fee on any note funded, and then we're lowering our minimum investment in our fund to $25,000.
Nice.
Another promotion coming up for Black Friday, so keep your eyes out for that. And Rawson, you're the man, dude. This has been great. I had a lot of fun talking with you.
Yeah, it was good.
And I think a lot of our note investors, just based off the questions, a few of them are people who did buy notes from us. So I think they got a lot of value out of this.
Good. I really hope so.
thanks for being transparent, man, and being honest and taking care of our capital.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, if Cade and any investors, if you guys need anything, if you have any questions, then obviously reach out. Our phones work, and we live in our emails. So just let us know what we can do for you, what we can answer.
And a human will answer you.
And a human will answer you. No robots here.
No robots. But thanks for joining, man, and thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I had a great time, and we will see you back next month for our next Note Strategy Hour.
Nice.